Hi guys and welcome to my channel. Thank you for stopping by on my channel today. I upload some short videos and pattern drafting, so if this is a niche you always like to get updated on, please do consider subscribing and it's never going to be a regret. So in today's tutorial I'll be sharing with you guys how to achieve this beautiful bustier gown with a waist cutout and strap. So without further ado or too much ado, I'll just get started with today's tutorial. So at the top area here is where all my measurements are starting from, and I went ahead to divide my shoulder of 16 inches into two, and I just marked 8 inches right there. So the next thing I'm going to do is to subtract 6 inches because I'm working with 6 inches as my neck depth. So to do this, I went ahead to place 6 inches above my paper, and I went ahead to mark 8 inches which is for my armhole, and 10 inches which is my bust point, and I'll go ahead as well to mark 13 inches which is my on the bust, and also my half length is 16 inches. So just because I'll be adding a band to this dress, I'm just going to subtract 1 inch from my half length, so the 1 inch is going to be for my band. So I went ahead to mark 15 inches and also mark half inch which will join, which will serve as my joining allowance. So I went ahead to extend all of these lines, and I'm going ahead to label it, my chest line, my bust point, under bust, my half length and my allowance respectively, so you don't get confused. So I'll proceed now to mark that 1 inch which will be for my band. Okay, so I separated this so you guys don't get confused. Okay, so you can see that this one I marked right here is for my band, and I'm just going ahead now to label it my band, so you just have that in mind. Okay, so after that, now I will just come to my chest line area, and I'm going to divide my bust circumference into 4, and I'm going to mark whatever I have right there, so you can see what I did. After that, now I went ahead to divide my nipple to nipple into 2, and I just went ahead to get 3.5 inches. Please, no measurement should be added to the band area. Okay, when it's time for measurements to be taken there, I'm simply going to do that. So I just stopped exactly on the 15.5 inches which I have. Okay, so the next thing is to take my waist dart, and from my bust point I'm going to come down by half of an inch, and on my half length, or you can call it your waistline, I came out at both sides of this my dart leg by half of an inch, and I went ahead to connect these just like this. So after this, now I've gone ahead to do this, I went ahead to mark my under bust circumference divided into 4, and I made a mark right there. I'll proceed to my half length and also divide my waist circumference into 4, and I went ahead to mark whatever I have there. So using my ruler, I'm just simply going to connect all these dots together into a straight line. Please carefully do this so you get a perfect drafting at the end of the day. Okay, so having done all of this, I'm going to replace this dart which is on my half length or on my waistline, and I'm just going to replace it like this. So I don't usually add my dart from the beginning of my dress because I didn't take my dart from the top area of my dress. I hope you understand what I mean. So this is how I actually add my dart. So by the time I take in my dart at that exact area where it stopped, I don't have excesses. I hope you understand. So I went ahead to add my seam or sewing allowance of 1 inch and quarter, so because I'll be turning this up, so that's why I added that quarter. So I went ahead now to measure what I have on my half length, and I transferred this exact figure on my band, and also added the 1 and quarter for my seam or sewing allowance. So I didn't add any dart allowance to my band. I didn't add anything because is my band and is not needed. Okay, so that is it, and the quarter inch is just for my turn up because I'll be turning this up totally with my lining. As you continue watching, you really understand what I mean. Okay, so if I take in my dart, it's going to correspond with my band, so there's no need to worry about that. So the next thing I'm going to give this now is a sweetheart neckline. So from that area, you can see that I came down by 1 inch. Actually, I came down by 1 inch, so I'm just simply going to come in again at that point by quarter of an inch because I don't really want the sweetheart to be like really pointy. Okay, so you can see how I went ahead to create a curve just like this, and I connected it up to my chest line area. That's the line labeled CL. So you can see what I did right here. I used my pencil to get this the way I wanted, and you can also go ahead, if you're not good at freehand, you can use your curve drill to actually curve this very well. You can curve yours more than mine. Okay, so after that, I went ahead to use my marker to highlight this to make it more clear. So you can see how nice this is turning out already. So after this, and that is all, I'll come to my waistline on my half length. For my waist cutout, I'm just going to come in like this by 1 inch. I don't need too much space actually, but if you actually want yours to be too much, you can actually go ahead and add extra inches to yours. But I came in by 1 inch and went up by 1.5 inches. So you can see I went ahead to connect just like this with my ruler, making sure that the top part meets the waistline. So I don't want this cutout to start exactly from under the bust, because my client didn't really want hers to start exactly from under the bust area. So having done all of this, that is all for the drafting of this front dress, and I went ahead now to first cut out the band of this dress before I'll proceed to cut out the other parts of this dress. Okay, so just watch carefully and see what I'm doing right here. So the next thing I'm going to draft out is for the back part of my dress. So I started off by marking 1/2 inch, and this 1/2 inch dots I'm making right here is going to be for my zip allowance of my zipper allowance. So after making these dots, I was using my straight ruler to connect these dots into a straight line. So this now, I'm just going to repeat the exact thing I did for my front dress. I'm going to repeat everything the same way, okay, excluding the waist cutout, because the back has no waist cutout. It's actually a zipper that is at the back. There is no design at the back. So I went ahead now to trace this out. You can see I used the front drafted bodies to trace this out, and also mark my darts. So it's like repeating everything I did the same way I did it right here, but the only difference is my zip allowance and kind of my neckline area, because I'm going to give it another shape. It's not really going to have the exact shape which the front dress has. Okay, so this is it, and I've already taken note of where all my measurements are going to start from. So I went ahead as well to subtract 6 inches, because that was what I did for my neck depth for the front. And I went ahead to also make this my 15 inches point, which is my half length, and my bust point. So this is it, and I just did this because I'm trying to recreate my dart to be sure that this dart doesn't shift. So that is it, and I'll just create my dart. So that's all. The next thing I'll do is to create a different neckline for this my dress. So I went ahead to come down by 2.5 inches, and from that my armhole area, from that point right there, that point I made there was actually my actual measurement, excluding the stitching allowance. So I just went ahead to connect like this, and I'll give this my zipper slope by coming up by 5.5 inches from there. So, and I'll connect this way, and once I'm done with this, I'll just go ahead and cut out whatever that is left. So this is all for the drafting of the upper part of this gown. Okay, so I didn't cut out a band for this back part because I'll make use of the front band which I cut out for the front dress, because it's going to align, because obviously if I had added it, I would have also cut out the zipper area. So there is nothing to get worried about, because that's how I do my zipper sloping. So for the skirt part now, I'm going to start by marking 1 inch for my zipper allowance. So I'm just trying to utilize my paper here. Okay, so I'm going to use this for both my front and my back skirts. Okay, so let's proceed. I went ahead to mark 1/2 inch at that top part, which is also going to serve as my joining allowance to the top part of my dress, because that is what I'm working with. I connected it into a straight line, and I'm going to divide my waist circumference into 4, and I'm going to mark whatever I have right there. So the next, I'll mark my hip length of 9 inches. I'll mark my knee length of 19 inches. Okay, sorry, before that I will give a little explanation. The full length of the dress I'm working with is 40, so I'm going to subtract 16 inches from 40, and meaning that this skirt length now is going to be 24 inches. That's the explanation I gave right here, please. So my hip length of 9 inches, and I'll go ahead as well to also mark my knee length of 19 inches, and also my full length of 24 inches, and I added 1 inch extra for hemming. Please pardon what you are seeing. I'm trying to manage my paper because this was the last one left, so I just had to utilize it very well. So I went ahead to connect all these lines into a straight, all these dots, I'm sorry, into a straight line. So I'll come to my hip area and divide the hip circumference by 4, and whatever it is I have, I'm just going to make a point right there on the hip line. So for my knee line, if you want to take your knee circumference, you tilt your knee, okay? So you tilt your knee to get your knee circumference right here. So I went ahead to also use my curved rule to connect from my waist to my hip. I've done this countless times on this channel actually, and I believe that my subscribers are already used to this. So if I'm kind of rushing this tutorial, please do watch my other previous tutorial on how to draft a bustier gown. Trust me, you're definitely going to understand everything properly, because it seems like I'm kind of rushing this tutorial. Okay, so that's by the way now. So after connecting, I went ahead now to create my darts. I came in by 3.5 inches, and I'm coming down by 5 inches. So that line which I'm trying to extend is going to be my dart line. So that point I made on my waistline, I'm going to connect it up to my dart line. So at both sides, I'll mark 1/2 inch, and I'm just going to connect it to my dart line. And the next thing is to replace this my dart intake of 1 inch. So I'm going to also make sure that it stops exactly under my dart line, as you can see right here. So I'll go ahead and add 1 inch, which will be for my stitching or my seam allowance, and also the 1/4 inch for my total turn up for this dress. So having done this, now I'm going to give this my butt curve. From my waistline, I came down by 5 inches, and from the 5 inches, I came down by 8 inches. So I'm going to connect like this into the 5 inches, and from the 5 inches like this into the 8 inches, and all the way down to my full skirt length. So that is all, and I'll go ahead now and cut out every other thing left here. So I'm going to, like I said earlier, I'm going to use this particular drafted skirt pattern for cutting out both my front and my back skirt. So all I'm simply going to do is for my front, I'm going to fold in the zipper allowance area. So if you want to utilize your paper just like me, you can also go ahead to do this. So that is all for this, and if I want to cut out for the back, I will bring out the zipper area. So I'll go ahead and cut this out on all my piece, and here it is. And this is a fabric I'm working with. It's actually an Ankara piece fabric, and you can see that I went ahead to add 1/2 inch at the top area of this my dress, and I'm also using the same fabric as my lining. And for this my back part, which is labeled B, I went ahead to also add 1/2 inch at the top area, and for my band at both sides, I went ahead also to add 1/2 inch, and I have 4 pieces of this band here with me. And this is for my sleeve. I went ahead to cut out. Remember, I subtracted 6 inches, so here I have 7 inches. If you spread it out, it's 14 inches. Okay, so that is all. And now I'll start by working with my front dress. So first things first, I'm just going to make sure that I bring this two piece from right sides facing each other, and I'm just going to first of all stitch the waist cutout area, and I'm going to cut this out. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm going to notch this and turn it to the front side or the right side of this my fabric. So the part that has these designs is actually going to be my main fabric, while the other side is going to serve as my lining piece. Regardless, that is the same fabric I'm working with. Okay, so go ahead and iron this flat, and I'll go ahead to also get my strap, which I already told you I cut out. So it is 2 inches wide and 14 inches long, as you can see right here. So I want to stitch, and I'm going to stitch with 1 inch, and I'm going to turn it to the right side. So there is it, and I'm just going to turn this my upper dress to the wrong side. I'm just going to flip it to the wrong side and arrange this properly. And this is strap I've already gone ahead to stitch and also iron as well. So folding it now, you can say I have 7 inches, and I went ahead to mark my 6 inches because I actually subtracted 6 inches for my neck depth. So this is actually what my strap is going to be because of the 6 inches I was working with. So now to fix my strap, I'm just simply going to take my my dart measurement of 3.5 inches from the middle of this my dress, and I'm just going to mark that. As you can see, I made a point there with my chalk. So I'm just going to also get this my strap, and I'm going to take the measurement of what I have. You can see it's 1 inch, and I'm going to get the center, which is 1/2 inch, and from okay. So I'm just simply going to put this from the underneath this dress, and I'll make sure that the 1/2 inch and this 3.5 inches which I marked aligns. Okay, so I'm making sure that everything aligns here. And on my actual fabric, I marked 1/2 inch because I'm going to be stitching with 1/2 inch. So I repeated the same thing for this other side, and I went ahead as well to pin for the two sides. So get the half of this your strap, and also mark in between the width and make sure it aligns with the straight line you made on this dress. So I'm going to stitch the top area using 1/2 inch, which I left for my stitching allowance, and the size I'm going to use 1/4 inch I added earlier on when I was drafting. Hope you remember. So I'm going to stitch all of this, and after stitching right here, I went ahead to notch all these parts. So the only part left open now is the hem or the base of this my dress. So I'll flip it now to the right side so you see what it looks like. So I'm not padding this dress because my client doesn't want it padded, so I'm not padding it in any way. So after flipping this to the right side, you can see how neat this is looking. So go ahead now and iron this out very well and iron it flat. And this is what I have. You can see how beautiful the waist cutout is already looking, despite we are not yet done. So after this, now go ahead now taking my darts, and please don't forget to notch your darts while cutting out on your fabric, please. So I've taken in my darts, and I went ahead to also iron this for the 3rd time or the 100th time, I don't really know. So here are my bands I'll be working with. So 2 will go for the front and the other 2 will be for the back. Remember, we are cutting into 2 because of the zipper area. So just like this, I'm going to place this my band right side facing each other with my actual fabric. So I'll go ahead and pin this. After pinning, and when I stitch, I'm going to show you what it looks like. So for the other side, which is the part serving as my lining piece, I'll also pin the same way I pinned for my actual fabric. So after pinning, I'm just simply going to stitch using the 1/2 inch seam allowance I left on this. So you can see that I've done it now, and I'm going ahead now to notch this, and also the 1/4 inch at the sides. I also used it to stitch down the size of the band so I don't have rough edges, because if there's anything I hate is roughness of my dress. Okay, so I went ahead to iron all of these flats once more, and this is the back I'm going to be working with at this point. I'm also going to use the same fabric as my lining piece. So right sides facing each other, I placed all of these and went ahead to iron. From the zipper area, I marked 4 inches, because remember that we're going to add a zipper to this. So by the time we take 1/2 inch, we're going to have 3.5 inch. Okay, so from the zipper area, I marked 4 inches, and I also went ahead to make those 6 inches I marked here visible, and also get the midpoint of this my strap. I'm also going to secure this with a pin by repeating what I did for the front dress, and also marking half inch on my fabric to make sure that this aligns with the 1 inch on my strap. Watch this carefully. Even if you don't really understand the explanation I'm giving you very well, watch this carefully, you understand what I mean. So I'll stitch all of these sides, everything, and also add my band just like I did for my front dress. So after that, you can see what I have, and also remember to take in your dart. So you can see how nice this is already looking. See my dart and all of that. So the next thing I'm working with now is with my the skirt part of this gown. So I've already gone ahead to cut out the lining piece for that my skirt and all of that. So what I did here, one trick I did here was that I actually left 1 inch above the actual length of my skirt, because I want the fabric to come in a bit when I turn over. So when I do this, you understand what I mean. So I have gone ahead to turn this up, see this at both sides, and you can see what I was trying to explain to you right here. And also went ahead to also take in my dart. So what I would advise you is, while doing all of this, please do ensure that your strap is actually straight, so that at the end of the day you don't have so you don't have to start losing your dress to refix your strap again. So please do take your time and do this. So I've taken my dart for my skirt part just like I told you, and you can see that the skirt part aligns properly with my band and all of that. So I'm placing my skirt just 1/4 inch above my band, because when I was trying to trim, I trimmed off excesses, so hence my band was a bit shorter than 1 inch. So here's for the back. I'll go ahead and also place these right sides facing each other. Make sure that you're facing the right piece together, and you can see what I have. I'll go ahead and pin as well. So after pinning, I'll pin this for the both sides. So after joining everything using 1/2 inch, I'll join the sides and also add or fix my zipper. Okay, so this is what it looks like after pinning. So that's simply all for this tutorial, guys, trust me. So stitch this up, stitch the sides using 1 inch, which I added while drafting for my seam allowance, and also add my zipper. And that was all I did for this dress, and it came out very, 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 very beautiful. So I did all of that now, and here's my end result. So you can see how perfect this is looking on this mannequin, despite it's not my client's body. Now assume and imagine what it looks like. So here is the final look of this beautiful dress I made. And if you've come this far watching me and you're yet to subscribe, please kindly do so. I'll see you next time on this same channel. Bye.